Good to log in. Okay. It should be recording now.
Our pre like both of us last week were just like, hello everybody.
Hi.
We're just talking about, like, before we started the recording, how we just kind of let ourselves go last week. So much so, like, I don't know if you noticed, Stage, but I completely forgot to do our thumbnail and all of our stuff. So it went up, and all it said was on like YouTube, it just said episode, and it was just our faces.
Oops.
We let ourselves go, and we both like sat down, put on our camera, and we both were like, "Oh shoot, we should probably go like shave,
clean." Oh my god, yeah.
You were talking about your you and your boy.
Yeah, so I like all last week, I didn't bring my little buzzer when I was at his place last week, so it just kept getting like longer and thicker and darker, and it was just like and I tell him yesterday, I was like, it's been bugging me so much. I'm just like, get it off my face. And he's like, oh, I didn't even care. I was like, that's great.
We're so, like, if it wasn't for the mask, right? Like, I would be upkeep on that like crazy for work, because kids are mean. Kids are mean. Kids would be like, "Why are you growing in a mustache and a goatee, like, and a beard, like?" But we mentioned this before. We're so subconscious of it just because of like how hard we got teased about it in school, and like the amount of times our mom just poked at it. Like, no, we need to go wax. We need to go wax this right now.
Yeah. I think this last week was the longest I've gone without buzzing it, because it just, as soon as I start getting like the darks right here, because that's where it comes in first.
Yeah.
I'm just like, nope.
It's gotta go right now. I used to do the not Brazilian wax. What do they call it? The European wax, like silly putty that they put on your kind of face.
Yeah.
Right. And I found like that was less harsh on you compared to like the normal waxing. Like, I didn't walk out of the place looking like a clown afterwards.
You also didn't bleed, because there's a couple times when you use like the strip wax, when we went to go do that, you would bleed.
Yeah.
And then I recommended European Wax Center to you because I had done it first. And it's so much gentler. So if you can afford it, go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if people want to go do it right now in the midst of a pandemic, but like those places are like being real strict on like the cleaning and everything. I just haven't gone back since, because it is a lot more expensive than like threading and the traditional strip wax. So, but yeah, no, I did, and I preferred the European waxing because it also lasted a little bit longer too. I felt like, compared to all the research, if you do it, because I did at one point, I was like, what should I do? And I've tried them all. I did the threading, and I find European waxing, and it's because my skin is real, as I'm told by everybody who has had to do the waxing on me, that my skin is very, sensitive. Very sensitive, and so like even just a little bit of plucking will start making me bleed. So that's my life. Welcome. Now you've learned more about our facial features. So, roll intro. I'm Rebeca.
And I'm Deanna. And we're
the Halfwit Sisters. And welcome back.
And Happy New Year!
Yeah, Happy New Year! So our Christmas episode, it did go up. we talked about some Christmas recommendations, Christmas shows to watch. We were supposed to be talking about like our favorite Christmas memories, and that failed miserably. There was really only one Christmas memory that we both had that we really liked, and then like the rest of it, we were like, oh, we can't even remember most of our childhood. So we ended up talking about our favorite holiday trips
and our travels.
Yeah, travels in Europe while we lived there. Yeah. So for this episode, we're thinking we're gonna go, since this episode is being released on New Year's, we're gonna talk about pretty much the Halfwit, like what happened for Halfwit 2020, and what we're hoping to kind of look forward to in this year coming up, 2021.
We'll also talk about stuff that's happened in our lives that we want to talk about.
Just big change. Yeah. There was a lot that happened. Like even before we started doing the
podcast.
Yeah, podcasts that had been going on. So things might be a little messy because we definitely weren't planning. Again, we took last week off and I think that was like the first week we really just took off from all of just everything.
We've taken a week off before, but it was like we had been a week ahead. Like you had done the thumbnails and all of the review for the following week because I had the week that I went to go visit mom and dad.
Right. Even when you were at mom and dad, we did a recording, but that was the one that
recording. Bad. Yeah. But the week before that, we also didn't do anything on because we had I don't remember, but there was a week that we had done where we didn't have to do anything because we had everything pre-done.
Oh, okay.
But last week was the week that we really just sat down and we were like, I don't care.
I think that was the one we were consciously like, screw it.
Yeah, the previous one we hadn't meant to. We had gotten ahead, so it was a nice unexpected break. Last week it was just like, no, we're not.
Yeah, so for this one, let's first say Happy New Year, and we're excited to be going into this coming 2021. 2021.
Let's not go back to 2020.
Don't take us back into 2020.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how 2020 went for us separately, and then we'll go into how it went, how it was as the Halfwits, and then we'll get into what we're hoping to accomplish in 2021.
So
I'm hoping that you heard it on your end because it did not pop up on my end.
I heard it on my end. It was nice and loud on my end.
I know you did something because I saw the whole push button method, but nothing here.
Hopefully that recorded. If not, okay.
So let's Deanna.
Did it work? So do you want to go first?
Oh man. For most of 2020, I think, I'll go first because mine is not really like, for most of 2020, I really wasn't doing much. Up until, what was it, in September when we started the Halfwits, I was not doing much. I was spending a lot of time really trying to get myself together. So this kind of goes back into 2019. And I mentioned this in a previous podcast of ours, a previous episode of ours. I had just been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. My company had closed in 2019, and I was a total wreck. So I was still getting myself together right about the time 2020 started. And I was working at Amazon when I was let go in February. So around all of that, I was still kind of getting myself together, still trying to figure out my triggers on what was causing me to have anxiety attacks, what was causing my manic episodes, a lot of those things. So a lot of mental development was happening for me. Of course, like I said, I lost my job in February. my job for Amazon in February. And then what was it, March, right? That's when COVID hit.
Yeah. That's when it really started hitting and people started shutting down.
Yeah. So March hits, and then it was really almost impossible for me to find a job at all. And that went, so what was I to do? I just spent a lot of time either watching YouTube, definitely doing job searching, and working on my resume. I was also working with, I don't know if anybody else knows about this, but there is a part of the, what do they call it? What are they called? Unemployment office that is strictly for people that have disabilities. And since I have dyslexia and bipolar disorder, I qualified for this, for the unemployment disability people, and I was working with them to make sure that I got paperwork and everything that said that yes, I had both a learning disability, but also had paperwork that said I had bipolar disorder. And with that, I could start working with them, and they would pay for courses and whatnot. Since I wanted to go into project management, that fell to the wayside because it got hard to like really find anything with so many things shutting down because of COVID. So like it was like I was starting to like really start a lot of stuff, and then COVID hit, and like everything fell apart. Just like for a lot of people, like that's the same thing that happened for me. So yeah, that was about it for most of it until about September. And you and I had been talking a lot for like, should we do a project? I don't know. Should we do a project? So we were just hemming and hawing about it, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to because I knew how you were about things, and I knew how I was about things, and I wasn't sure if we would be able to like, what is it? Compromise? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If there's anything that anybody has learned from our talks, you and I are both stubborn, and like
we have a way that we want things done.
Right. We're stubborn, and we're strong-headed.
Bullheaded.
Huh?
Bullheaded.
We're both very confident. I think we're both very confident. I think we're both women that have like when we set our mind on something, we want it done, right? We want it done, like you said, in a very certain way. And sometimes that leaves it very hard for us to compromise with other people when we have a vision that we want to get to. And so when you and I were talking, it was like, could we compromise enough with each other so that we could get to the vision that we both had? And it was honestly a leap of faith to even go and do the Halfwit stuff. And like we said, we'll talk about it in the next part here. Like, I think we did. Like for me, it was like an understanding, like there's going to be a lot of compromising between you and I, and understanding like what I was good at and what you were good at, what you are good at. Making sure, like, knowing when to pick our battles, like what battles to pick with you, and when to just say, nope, DJ gets to win this one, right? That's what a lot of that was going to be. So continuing on with that trend, like, then I got onto my TikTok stuff, and I started doing a lot of the TikTok stuff in about May, and I started posting a lot of more content around September as well, and more content continue. And I posted every day up until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah, I was posting TikTok every day. I restarted my blog, although I haven't posted anything recently. And I was working again on some stuff for my Patreon. I was doing a lot of research on dyslexia and some other projects that I want to work on, because I was looking for other ways of funding projects, especially because we were looking at going into 2020 again, 2021, 21. ways to fund projects. So, getting a head start on that. So I've been doing a lot of research through there. But the biggest thing for me this year that really, I'll talk about it. The biggest thing for me this year that really stood out is that I set a big goal for myself. And that was to reduce the amount of medication that I was taking. Like I said, I started in 2019 getting help. I started right after June. We had gone to the Bahama trip with our parents. Right after we got back in June, I went to go get help because I had a huge mental breakdown. At a certain point, I was taking up to about 7 different medications. 7 different medications. I was taking several different various degree milligrams of medication, and it was just a lot, and I didn't like it, and I didn't want to stay on that, and I was hating the fact that I was really dependent on these medications to help me regulate my mood, because I hate pills. I really do. But I also know that as somebody who has bipolar 1 disorder, that sometimes you just can't exist without that stuff. But I didn't want it to be the only thing that I relied on. So I set a goal for myself to make sure to get it down to as best that I could get it down to, while also, like I said, improve my mental abilities to handle a lot of the stress and daily things that come up. And that's where a lot of I saw counselors and stuff like that, but they didn't stick around for very long. Again, COVID really threw stuff out of whack. So I found this year was really testing, because it was where a lot of people were going stir crazy because they were being locked in their houses and stuff like that. I completely understand. I'm 100% there. I'm one of the people that is not a homebody. I like to be out. I like to be among friends and visiting and doing things. And so being locked in, it's I completely understand the whole stir crazy thing. So I set a goal, and I was I want to get the amount of medication down, and I want to be able to handle the stress, and I want to be able to recognize my triggers, and I want to be able to do this stuff so that I could, one, handle a job again, because that's one of the reasons why I wasn't having any jobs anymore, was because I couldn't even handle the basic daily stress. I wanted to start writing again, and I couldn't because I was too far in my own mind to really do that. So little by little, both because of the Halfwit, I was able to start writing again. I haven't recognized them all, but I've started to recognize my triggers, and I'm able to start managing a lot of my stress. And finally, just a couple weeks ago, I had my appointment with my doctor, and I was finally able to tell him that I don't need all of those medications anymore, that I only needed 3 of them. And the 3 that I needed were the ones that help manage the moods the most, so that I don't have the wild mood swings that I've had these last year and a half. And that's been when I got off the phone with him, I almost cried, because that was such a huge moment for me, after being so wildly out of control for so long for that bed. So that's what most of my 2020 is just been spent trying to get a lot of myself under control so that I could go back out into the world. And because I was able to get that stuff under control, I felt like I could finally handle a job, and then I got a job again. And I help children with reading and writing. at a at a like hoity-toity after-school program. I don't get paid a lot for it, and it's probably not going to be a job that I stick with for the long term, but at least it got me out there. And it's, DJ, because you've had to teach kids at this point. It's stressful, trying to like break like concepts that we now, like, we as older people understand, down to something that children who are in middle school or younger, down to a more basic level for them to understand, Yeah. And that's stressful. And then on top of that, you have somebody else running around the room yelling at you to make sure that you're doing your job. Yeah. it's not fun.
Yeah.
But the thing that makes that job worth it is when a kid has that moment where they recognize or understand the lesson, and like they just go, they have that aha moment and just brighten up. Like that is what keeps me going back, and where I'm like, like I enjoy that part of the job.
Yeah.
So that's what most of my 2020 has been, outside of the Halfwit, just rebuilding myself, getting back to me, because I haven't been me for what I felt like, I think, since 2013. That's a much bigger and longer story, and to be honest, I've written that on my blog. I've written about it on my blog. I've talked about it on my TikTok. I mean, I can go in and talk about it on a different thing, but I don't want to bring it out here because it's a long story as to why I feel like 2013 is the year that I lost myself, and why 2020 is the year that I found myself. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. But yeah, 2020 I think is the year that I found myself. There, you go. Oh, you.
So for me, and I'll take it back into 2019, at the end of 2019 as well. I've been doing brand ambassador work for a few years at this point. And 2018, I like quit my part-time job and just decided I'm just going to do BA work.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of 2019, it kind of paid off, where one of the companies that I worked with turned to the agency that they had hired me through and was like, hey, we're going to buy out her contract and just hire her directly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask for it. They just decided to do it because they like working with me. And it paid off. And so in February, like my first contract with them directly was November through January.
Mm-hmm.
And then in February, I went out with them into Chicago for a job. And at the same time, that same agency that I was working with had asked me to go out to Chicago to work another job immediately after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, you know what? I was going into 2020. I was like, I'm going to double my income again, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to get to travel a lot. And then COVID hit.
Yeah. Goddamn unskippable cutscene.
And, I was this close to getting approved for a loan so that I could buy an apartment here in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I had, as soon as that job was finished, that got canceled, I was going to have all the money I needed for my down payment. And then COVID and the unskippable cutscene happened, and I had to pull my application. March happened, and I had no work, and I had no prospect of work, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get unemployment because I was an independent contractor. And you can't always get unemployment through that. So I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends from my BA work reached out with an opportunity that she saw on Facebook and was like, hey, they're looking for people to work drive-through testing sites. It was like, sign me up. And I went to training for that. And then they were like, hey, we're going to put you on hold because we're not doing that anymore. Like, okay. A week later, I start working at the hospital. And I've talked about the hospital a lot. I'm not going to go through all of that, but I was there from the very end of March, like the last day of March, all the way through the last day of October.
Right.
And you've seen me through that. It was a lot. And then I finally decided to leave there. And I started working as a substitute teacher. And that's just what I've done. This year is just kind of a blur because it's just been nothing but work for me. But at the same time, a lot of good things happened. I started dating Neil. And he makes me really happy. And I know 2020 kind of is a shit show, but for me, it's not been too bad. I've been thankful enough and blessed enough to have work and meet someone. Granted, I had already met him. We had known each other for a few years. But be able to like decide to come together. We started the Halfwits. Got obsessed with TikTok.
You certainly did. I think I a little bit more than you.
I think I was obsessed with scrolling through it, and then like I did my ART3 series on there. And I meant to do more series and more things, and my time got taken from me, and I don't know where half of it went. The other half got divided between Halfwit and writing for Halfwit and Project Evil and Neil. And I don't regret any of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know really what 2020 was going to bring at the start of the new year. I definitely didn't expect what it did bring. Every month has been something different, but for me, it's been nothing but work. And some of that work I'm happy with, and some of that work I'm glad I did it, but dear God, never let me do it again. But it's also been a year where I really took my kind of civic duty to just help and went with it. So I worked at the hospital. I signed up to be a poll worker, and I worked election day. I signed up to help be a substitute teacher. And speaking of the election day, they named Citizen of the Year, and I'm Citizen of the Year, along with about 70,000 other first-time poll workers.
I think it said 700,000.
7? Oh, wow. You read it better than I did.
It's kind of my job now.
I glanced at it and I was like, hey, I'm Citizen of the Year. Which is a great thing, but for me, it was just like kind of an amusing fact. Just like it's kind of an amusing fact that I'm Lady of Cloudland because I bought a souvenir plot in Scotland. It like doesn't really mean anything, but it's nice to have. But yeah, that's just what it's been. 2020 was just nonstop work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Awesome. Going back and talking about TikTok, like I said, I posted every day. Once I posted my first one, I posted my first one talking about how we got like our logo for the first time. Like we got a logo. And then after that, it was just like I didn't have any plans on what I was posting. I would wake up in the morning and I'd post something. It was like the first, before I ever got out of bed or walked out of my room, I posted something. And that was the first thing I did every day. The Gilbos can tell you, my roommates can tell you, that's what I did, is just got up, posted. If I didn't post, then the only reason why I didn't is because I was trying to figure out what I do. And that's when I'd scroll through TikTok and see if there was somebody that I could duet, or if there's somebody that I could like add to their conversation. And there are a couple of people who I did that with. Like, again, that's when I started talking about doing that series about what dyslexia is, what dyslexia is, because there's so many things about ADHD on TikTok, but I still have yet to run into like things that really talk about what dyslexia is. And for the first time, about a couple weeks ago, I ran across somebody who was talking about dyscalculia. For those that don't know, dyscalculia is dyslexia, but with numbers. And this person is like, that's what this is. I'm like, that's part of it, but not all of it. But like, I was too tired to even make a TikTok because I ran across that at like 2 a.m. But if this had been like 3 weeks ago, I would have been like making a TikTok right then and there and been like, hey, anything that has to do with this, and this all have these symptoms that go along with dyslexia. But that was some of the stuff that I was doing. And like one of my most viral TikToks wasn't even me that got the viral TikTok though, was a guy who was talking about a K-pop idol and how he was being called out because he pronounced a K-pop idol's name wrong. And how frustrated he was that he got called out because he struggles with pronouncing Korean names. And I was telling you, I was like, that's because people with dyslexia struggle with sounds. And then that's not even like the whole story on it, right? And that brought back that whole frustration of like, everything that has like the misunderstandings of dyslexia. So like even from there, so that was one thing, and I was like, and like my stuff, you can look down in our little like where you can follow us is everything is my dyslexic world. Dyslexic is spelled wrong, DES, not DY. Like it's all misspelled. I've been wanting to do that with my TikTok for a while. So all the TikTok stuff I've been doing has been like this build up, but also learning our platform, because that's what we're wanting to do a lot of our stuff for. And it's also kind of a relief because we've learned recently that TikTok's not going away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. It was a big worry.
The whole band just fell apart.
Huh? Oh yeah,
the band just
the whole thing just fell apart. Like I never had a fear that it was going to go away. Like, I never did. To be completely honest, like, I never had a fear that it was going away. And the whole reason why is because you can't really take apart something on the internet. Like, people are like, well, what about Vine? Look.
Vine shut down.
Vine got shut down because they were bought out. They got bought out by Twitter. Right? And so Twitter shut it down. Right? That's something that Twitter had the ability to do. So, and that's what happens when corporations get involved. And there's long histories about what happens when companies get bought out. Like, long histories on that. But I never had a fear that was going to happen. Like, it was going to get shut down here. Because I don't believe it even really stayed shut down in other countries that had banned it anyways, because the youth were finding ways around these bans to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to what I was saying, like, I was posting them every day, and then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to stop posting every day because I actually want to develop quality content. And that's what I've been doing, spending like the last couple of weeks planning what kind of quality content I want to put up. Because when you get to a point where you want to build an audience, you have to create value. And now we can transition into the Halfwit Sisters. So, we definitely didn't plan on doing the Halfwit Sisters.
No. It was supposed to be a really simple TikTok follow the comments type video.
Right. But it wasn't going to work. Like, that style wasn't going to work. We learned pretty quickly that the way that TikTok was set up, like we were going to use the comment section as a way to do your choose your own adventure. And we learned pretty quickly, like, that wasn't going to work because as comments roll in, any comment at the top slowly rolls down.
So, the ones that are at the top are the most liked ones. So unless people are consistently liking the option A, option B, it could get lost in the comments.
Yeah. So we were just like, all right, well, that's not an option. And that's when we decided to switch the choose your own adventure mode over to YouTube.
Because of the end card feature.
Yeah, the end card feature. Which was great. But then we were like, okay, but how are we going to get people to like be interested in this whole thing? And that's when we were like, well, we'll make a whole TikTok thing that leads up as a promotion to this little game on our YouTube channel. And we're like, okay, well, how many should we do of that? And I think it was me that was like, well, maybe 20 videos.
We threw out a random number as just a example, and then we just like, okay, that's the number we're going to use.
Yeah, we're like 20 videos that lead up to it, and then 20 videos that continue to promote it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And we still haven't even written the 20 videos of afterwards.
Look, my plan is tomorrow is to wake up, put makeup on, and film just a couple of the lead up videos that are done on the couch. Because that's the only place that's really kind of clean right now that I can film at. Mm-hmm. That I already was going to have set up for her home.
Right. So, and we were like, what about the podcast? Like, why did we start doing the podcast? So we were originally like, well, we're going to document it, right? We're going to document our whole development process of Project Evil, which I really just threw that name together on the fly. So like, we're just going to,
I think it was supposed to just be a placeholder name, and now it's just the name.
Yeah, it's just the name. So Project Evil, it was what I called it on, what's the project thing that I use? Trello, yes. It's what I call it on Trello, and that's how I've been keeping track of all of our stuff. So Project Evil, we were going to document it all, like, through here, and then it's like, after we're done with the whole thing, we're going to release these out as bits and pieces for people to just kind of, as a continual promotion of how we developed the whole thing.
Some behind the scenes footage.
Yeah. Yeah. But as we're doing it, like, we just start having a natural conversation, and we're both like, what if we just made it a podcast? Right? What if we just did that? And then the next question that followed up was like, what would we even call ourselves? And I know all of you have heard this story by this point. Like, it came down to like a joke that our dad had told us when we were watching like America's Got Talent, of like we should go and be on the show and call ourselves the Halfwit Sisters, right? And that's where that comes from.
Together we make a full wit.
And so that's what we've done.
Ta-da!
Yeah, and so that we've stuck with it since, and we're like, that's perfect. What we're gonna keep. Hi, Cotton, just barrel through. No, please, just not like that door was meant to be closed at all or not. Yeah, no, that's fine. Just walk back out. So done with these cats. So yeah, so that's this is what it was meant to be in the beginning. Just a documentary, just documenting our process of creating this project.
Which is why that pilot episode is such a mess. It is. Because it wasn't meant to be something. It was just we were going to go through and pull highlights from it later.
Yeah. And then the next one, we're just like, what if we just actually took it seriously? And that's what the next one was.
Yep.
Is us actually trying to do a podcast style thing. And it was enjoyable, for me at least.
Yeah, and I enjoy it because this is just like an hour where we get to sit down and kind of talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we still have conversations outside of this that are like, we don't want to, they're not conversations we want out there because they're either really, really personal or just like, I need advice from my older sister and I don't want that out in the world.
Yeah. Speaking of advice, we had a relative of ours contact us. So, things to know, I am the oldest of all the grandchildren on both sides. Things to know. I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of our family. If there are older ones, I have not met them because I know we have relatives out there that we have not met. But
yeah, but I think we're the oldest. Because we have one uncle that's between us, like age-wise.
Age-wise, yeah. But of all of the cousins that I know of, I am the oldest. Yeah. So one of our cousins reached out and was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to have an older sibling who can talk to you like that. You can talk to her like that. And I'm like, you can always come and talk to me because I am the oldest out of all of us. like I was telling our, so we have our Grandma Jeannie, which is our, on our dad's side, and our Grandma Yolanda, who's on our mom's side. And I was telling our Grandma Yolanda, is like, she was talking about all the relatives, and I was like, Grandma Yolanda, I am fully understanding that I am the oldest grandchild you have. And it is the same on both sides. She was like, yeah, sweetie, that's just how it is. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. her old like Hispanic grandmother. So, but yeah, that is how it is. But also, we've mentioned on our podcast too, like we're also we don't know how to connect with them. I think you've managed to build a relationship up a little more with mom's side of the family because you now live closer to them.
Yeah, proximity. I live closer to them, so I get to interact with them more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still struggle to make connections with a lot of our family members. Even though I do live with near some of them here in Texas, there's still like, Texas is big, so there's a gap.
Look, you drive an hour in New York and you can be in 3 different states. You drive an hour in Texas, you're still in the same city.
Yeah. So, but I still struggle to make connections. And the people that I'm closest with here in Texas is Grandma Jeannie and Grandpa Tim. So that's here. But yeah, I've mentioned to them before. I was like, if you ever need to talk with anybody, you can talk with me. Like I'm a Facebook message away. But yeah, going back, so we we made this, so we decided to go full on, make this whole thing a podcast. And then we immediately like, okay, Halfwit Sisters, that's going to be our name. And then I, having run a marketing company before, was like immediately, right, now I need to figure out how to get us out there. How do I get us out there? How do we start generating an audience? Not generating audience, generating a content that brings us in attention, right? Because we didn't just want to keep launching this into the void. And it's, even though we go back and we look, we got like 4 views here, 5 views there. I'm like, at least they're views.
Yeah. And I think either you sent me a TikTok or I saw a TikTok of like, sometimes your content will go into a void, and that's okay because it's out there, and if it gets 1 view, then you've succeeded.
That was me, and it was also me that made that comment.
Was it?
Yes.
See?
So I'll find this. Here's the TikTok. I also do edit that.
This, I tell anybody that wants to be a content creator, a writer, a Twitch streamer, a YouTuber, a podcaster, whatever, if you're going to create content, this is something you have to understand. There may be some days that you get all the views, that you have all the engagement, and then there may be some days where you have nothing, where you are putting stuff out into the void, and that can be super frustrating. And there may be days where you're staring at your analytics and you saw wild growth 1 month and then it drops off and you see barely any growth the next month. It's in times like these that I remind myself that the only real control we have is how hard we are working and hoping that that hard work brings us something.
A wise woman once said.
So part of the guy's TikTok is he's talking about how it's kind of frustrating, and one of the most frustrating. Okay, hold on, let me bring it back. One of the most frustrating things about being a content creator is that you never know if people are going to like what you put out. And that there may be times where you are constantly launching your stuff into the void. And you have no control over that. The only control you have is how much effort you put into it. That's it. And the only hope you have is that that amount of effort is eventually rewarded. That's what I said in my duet to this guy's video.
Look, you stare long enough into the void, eventually the void will stare back.
Right? And I have been paying attention to our analytics. Like, I do pay attention to our analytics, and we do get 1 or 2 views on videos. Sometimes we don't get any views, and that's fine. Not every, like, our videos are also long. We're an hour long. Like, I get that. And that's not to everybody's flavor. That's okay. That's also why I put our things, break it down. So if there's ever anything you just want to see once, you can just go and click on that particular minute and watch that section.
It's the other reason why, like, our titles are pretty specific to what we're talking about. So if you see something in our title and you're like, oh, I want to hear just about that, you can go down to the minutes and hear just about that.
Right. Again, the moment that we started getting serious, I purposely started building our channel in very specific ways. And in fact, building all of our channels in very specific ways. Even our trailers. And I guess you have seen an example of that, but here's another example of that. This was a process, even to get down to the point that I got it down to now, which takes about maybe less than 40 minutes to actually make. Because now I just do a thumbnail and a picture of my head popping up and a voiceover. And you do, when I give you one, I'm now doing something different for you because I don't really have a picture, or you don't use the same software that I do. And you only do yours on TikTok. So now I have to create a completely different image for you whenever you're doing your part of it, right? The other half of the Halfwit Sisters, right?
Yeah, which I've only done once for our TikTok.
Right.
But yeah,
that's another formula that now needs to be added in. And so, but everything I'm doing is done with a purpose. And like the minutes, that's done with a purpose. Our titles are done with a purpose. The way that I build the thumbnails, like that is also done in a very strategic manner because I am trying to grab attention. And if there's something that's not in our title because the title only has 100 characters, then I do it in our thumbnail. Like I do whatever I can to grab the attention. And the summaries that I do in our trailers, like even that is done with the intention of letting you know what exactly or how deep our topics are going to be. So, and I only have about 59 seconds to actually relay anything because of how short TikTok videos are. And I use that exact same video across all our feeds. I know Instagram and definitely Facebook you can go longer on, but Instagram and Twitter prefer shorter videos and they will cut it off if you don't do it. So I've had to be smarter about it. So all of that I've done through like the last, how long have we been running? We've been going since September, right? May?
Yeah. 4 months.
4 months, yeah. Over the last 4 months, all of that has been through constant testing. And if you go like and look at our videos on our Halfwit channel on TikTok, like most of our videos get somewhere in the hundreds of views now.
Yeah. Just
from making sure that we have the right.
And it's a consistent branding across the thing. Like you use by using the colors, the font, just the way they're all arranged. It's very easy to see, oh, I know exactly who that's by.
Right. And also the other thing that I do is, particularly on TikTok, is I use the little title thingies that you can put on so that if anybody just goes to like clicks on our page entirely, everything has a title and it says episode number, whatever, or date that we released that on or whatever. So again, I'll repeat it as much as I need to. Nothing that I do is without reason. It's all strategic. It sounds like people are like, oh, that sounds bad. But no, it's not. Everything that is done with a reason. And I do it that way because I want to make sure that our hard work pays off. Because at the end of the day, we want people to see Project Evil or one of the other projects that we have that we've been talking about, like How Unlucky. That's another one that we're talking about building, which is like a deconstructed fairy tale podcast style. So I guess for a lot of people, they're like, well, that seems very unauthentic, right? There's this big push in social media to show your most authentic self. I'm gonna be honest. That is my most authentic self.
But there's also a difference between showing your authentic self and showing a properly constructed view of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to see my authentic self, my floor is a mess. You don't want to see that.
Okay? Floor's always a mess.
You don't want to see the mess that is around me, how I keep my workstation, because while it's crowded and it's a mess, it works for me.
Mm-hmm.
But like if I have to take a picture of all of this, half this shit goes away so you can't see it.
It's like cleaning days happening now.
Because you don't want to see that authentic part of it. You want to see who I am in that little capsule of beauty.
I guess.
But not even like beauty in like the traditional sense of just like,
I guess there's like people who get caught up in like what is considered like the Instagram reality, right? Or the social media reality versus like kind of what I'm seeing more is like the authentic TikTok reality.
Yeah.
'Cause there is this kind of like a transition in what you see between what Instagram has made popular over the last 5 or so years and what TikTok is kind of destroying by its own mode of showing like people being depressed and what depression looks like and how insane depression has made people's rooms go into, right? The thing the thing about talking about like how messy your floor is, for some people they're like, well, that's just one part of it. Like the next thing you're going to show us is how you like fix that. And you're like, nah, like
no.
That's legit just how it is all the time.
when I fix it, it's just so I can take a photo for like a behind the scenes thing of, look, I don't want you to see the fact that I have maple syrup and salt and 3 bottles of soda on my counter. Because I don't want to pull focus over to the mess around me. I want you to see what I'm working on.
Right.
And that's the authentic part of that. Like, I want you to see the actual work, not the mess.
Right. So when I talk, and that, I guess that's why I'm always talking about like our strategy, because like for me that's the most authentic me that I could possibly put out there. Like I go back and I constantly look at each video that I put out, and I'm looking at which one has the most views, which one did the best. And yeah, some of the duets that I do well view wise, but none of them get reactions, and the reactions or interactions are like when somebody hits the like button, right? The little heart on there. View-wise, I do well. That's good. View-wise, I do well. Yeah. People will watch the whole video, which is great, but I don't get a whole lot of interaction. And that's when people are saying like, oh, well, that doesn't work out. Depending on the different platforms, like, that could change. With TikTok, they say like, view-wise counts more than interactions do, whereas like Facebook and Instagram, interactions are more important than views, which I can agree with because you're not a video platform. Now, YouTube, interactions and views also count a lot more than interactions do, because views are like how ads get counted. That's why views will count more.
But they also won't promote something that's like at a lot of views but no interactions.
Yeah.
Because you have to find that medium between the two.
Yeah.
Which I think, isn't it with YouTube, even the dislike button counts positively towards your channel? Because it's an interaction.
Negative publicity is good publicity.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah. There's like been like big debates on like how being controversial is still a good way of getting attention. Right? Like being controversial and is probably a faster way to gaining fame than being somebody who is. Do you remember Tyler Oakley? Like nobody talks about him anymore.
Yeah.
But he was a vlogger, big time vlogger on YouTube like a couple years ago. I haven't heard his name in ages.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that where even like the people who go viral for something, they go viral and then you never hear about them again.
Right. Well, and that's because like it's so finicky on what is considered viral. Like, and that's why I hate all these marketing things that talk about how they can make you go viral. And this is the thing that I hate most about TikTok. Using the hot hashtag even when it's not related to your content. That's the thing I hate most about TikTok.
Yeah.
Anyways, bringing it back. Talking about our strategies is like, that's the most authentic part of me that I can talk about, because it also shows how I'm worried that we're not going to get the attention that I think our hard work deserves. And I think that a lot of people could relate to that, when, especially content creators, when you're pouring so much effort into creating the very best work you can, and it just not getting anything, you know?
Yeah. And you have to, and I know I made a TikTok about that kind of touched on this, but it wasn't actually about this. It was about my spending habits. And how when I buy things, sometimes it's just like I have to justify my purchase. But I'm very lucky that I am not dependent on views and interactions to feel accomplished for creating something. And for some people, it is. If they're not getting views or stuff, then they feel like they're a failure, and then they start spiraling into this void that they don't need to be in. And it's, yeah, sometimes our stuff doesn't get a lot of views, but we're creating stuff. We are consistent in our creation. And that is something to be proud of.
Right. And that's where you have to take your pride in. Right? Is that thing where, again, like I said, you can't control that part of anything, like who views your content. The only thing you can control is how often you put it out, where you place it, what kind of hashtags you put on it. You know, that's the only thing you have control over.
Yeah. And I think for some people who go viral, who have been consistent in their creation, it's easy to keep going. And then for people that just randomly go viral, that's why you never hear about them again.
Right, because it was like they weren't planning for it.
Yeah.
They weren't planning for it. Yes. There's the people that are planning, that are constantly doing it, and they're like, oh, yes, I finally made it. Now, don't go away. I have more. And then there are people who was like, oh, I wasn't planning for this at all. Don't stick around.
Yeah. Or stick around, I'll figure something out. Yeah. And then they don't produce the same quality content that their one viral video did because they weren't prepared for it.
Right. So for the Halfwits, like, this wasn't planned, but we're putting a lot of effort into it. We're constantly like learning new things, like soundboard that I don't hear. You know, we're constantly
okay.
I heard a little bit of that.
Well, hopefully everyone else hears this. It's amusing.
And like going into this next year, like that's even more of the stuff we're going to be learning and we're probably even going to start to learn, like, how do we monetize the Halfwit Sisters? Like, how do we start building? This, I think, was like we were learning how to like build consistency, build good habits on, like, I think we built like a really good habit on continuously posting once a week, one video.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
and I usually get to you the final edits by Thursday so that we can and upload it. Like tomorrow or later tonight, maybe I'll edit this video.
Yeah. And so we've been like really good and been consistent. Like, I don't think we've ever missed If we have, we don't remember, but I don't think we've missed yet 1 week that we've put out a video.
No, because like, the 1 week we would have missed, we recorded 2 videos and got it up there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're like, sometimes we overcompensate to make sure that we're like either ahead by a week or so, just to make sure we're constantly keeping it going. Now our next thing is just making sure like all these projects that we're talking about doing is that we're finally getting those ones out the door. So I feel like we've used the podcast as like our testing ground, as our proving ground to know that we can do something. And now we can go to the next step, which is getting Project Evil out the door. And if it's not Project Evil, then what is something that we can get out the door? If maybe Project Evil is a bigger project and that's our year, like that's the thing we're working on in the background, that's our year-long thing or something like that, you know what I mean? But it's not going away. We want to do that. It's going to be done. Yes. We just realized like halfway through, oh, it's way bigger than we thought. Oops. Like you were talking about building a full set, and I was like, we have to build sets? Like, you talked about, Neil was talking about building a set, and I'm like, building a set? The game? What? Like, I wasn't thinking. I thought we were just like put up a green screen and be like done with it.
Look, we'll still use the green screen, but some of the stuff I gotta interact with. So I don't want to be going to a green screen.
So at that point, we're like, okay, maybe we might have to start figuring out like maybe smaller projects that we can do to fund how we start bringing in props for our bigger project, right? Like that's what we completely rebuild how Halfwit Sister works, right? Like that's something we're probably going to have to talk about going into this new year. But like that's the one thing that I took away from, so we'll talk about this, like what we took away, like what we each took away from Halfwit Sisters for this year. The one thing that I took away for Halfwit Sisters this year is that, one, like, it helped me grow as a content creator. And it showed that I can do something, and that I can do something consistently, and that I very much enjoyed the art and the planning phase of things, of building things, and I do enjoy working with you and planning things with you, and that I'm super excited about what our next steps are going into this new year. So for this, and like even more so, I also enjoyed being able to experiment with the different writing styles that I've had to do with Project Evil. Like I mentioned on our last one, I realized that we were kind of writing an insert flick after we just talked about how we don't like insert fanfics. And we're having to write an insert fanfic. Right?
Game. It's a game.
Right. But I got to have fun with writing a script style, but I also had fun writing character backgrounds, and I got to have fun doing project planning and doing some social media planning and strategy, and doing those trailers for our podcast. So fun. So I got to do all of these different experiments that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was working at just a regular company, because, they would have been like, no, you do this. So I got to do all these different experiments, and it was just so fun. And I got to stretch the limits of my abilities. And that I wouldn't have been able to do without the Halfwit being like a great testing ground.
Yeah. For me, I feel more comfortable calling myself a content creator, because while some of the content for my personal stuff might not be consistent, I have done it I have completed 4 or 5 miniseries, and I've written the first a third of a huge project, and it's good. And there's other things that I have that I'm like, this is good, and I have more confidence to go forward and start trying to produce those. And know that what I produce and what I do is I'm doing it to the best of my abilities with the instruments that I have created. Referring to my computer.
Yeah, I know. You built your computer for the first time.
That's something I did this year. With the people who are around me, and knowing that while sometimes I might use lights that aren't like soft boxes or like professional equipment, I'm capable of producing work that I'm proud of.
Right.
And Halfwit really helped me come to that conclusion, that knowledge that I'm a content creator and I can do this consistently and it's good. And I'm happy and able to do all the stuff that goes into it. So I'm still not calling myself a writer, though.
You are, whether you like it or not. But content creator is probably a better fit, yeah.
So
okay, so let's wrap this up with what we're looking forward to going into this new year.
More Halfwit to come, projects that we will working on, getting some of this stuff filmed. I know a couple people who have been watching who are like, it's been 4 months, where is it? And it's like, it's coming. It, like we've said several times, it became a bigger project than we thought it was going to be 4 months ago. But we'll have content for you coming into the new year. We are creating it, and it will be there. I'm looking forward to getting that out there.
Right. I know that we're going to have to restructure things, right? And so that's going to be a conversation that we have, whether we record it or not, like that's still going to be a conversation that we have to have about how stuff goes out. For me personally, like I'm looking forward to getting some writing projects out. There's a whole bunch of writing projects that I put on hold. I mentioned one of them in my TikTok called R9. I finished season 1 in about 2016 and 2017, and I want to do season 2. There's another one called Electric Steam, which was a steampunk cyberpunk mashup, and I want to start that one up again. And I want to get to the second book of the one that I've been talking about and posting everywhere that has also an audiobook of Project Khalid, episode 2. I want to get that one out as well. And there's also another thing, and why not? I'll talk about it. I want to write some erotica. I've been talking about this with DJ and a couple of my roommates and a couple of other people. 1 second.
Yeah. Bless you.
Oh, that sneeze hurt my back. I've been talking about this. I like to experiment with genres. I really do. And so some of the researching I've done has been with erotica, but because of the way that a lot of sites have been going about sexually explicit content, it's gotten harder and harder to figure out how to post that work. So I've been doing a lot of research on like, how do you do it? Where do you even like begin to post it? And I may be like starting back in my original proving ground, which is fan fiction. And I find fan fiction to always be like where I go whenever I start to doubt my abilities. Like, that's where I go to like reorganize myself there. So yeah. And then of course Halfwits, like you know, we're definitely, I think I said it already, but we're definitely, that sneeze knocked me out so hard. Definitely having to, I really truly believe we'll have to talk about reorganizing some of the way that we're doing things, especially because of how big the project is. And going into this new year, I think that we're probably going to talk about monetizing some of it and what is the best way of doing that. Is it Patreon? Is it Ko-fi? K-O-F-I? Is it Ko-fi?
Yeah, which like right now you have your Patreon, I have a Ko-fi. Like we do have places where people could donate, but like we don't market that because we haven't discussed how to actually go about it.
Right. For like we have our personal things. Right, but do we want to combine things? How do we want to do these? Like even then, like and that's business talk, and we haven't even talked about that because that's like you have your marketing, you have your content creation, and then you have the business side, and we haven't even talked about the business side because it was all fun before. But now it's like the business side is coming up, and that's like once the branding went into place, I was like, business. Like that was what my brain went to. And I knew that the conversation was going to come up. But like I said, we were in our testing and our proving ground. But now we're going into this next year and I'm like, it's going in that direction. So we're gonna have to talk about it. So,
yep. Okay. But we're gonna end this part here, because I really got to go to the bathroom. So, thank you for watching. You know what to do.
Like, comment, subscribe, hit that like bell button, and hit the bell icon so you can get all the notifications.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.